I've been in this fandom searching for discussions with intelligent people who disagree with me for a couple of years now. The best way to understand your preferences and your beliefs is to have them challenged, so you are forced to defend them from those challenges. Bonus points if you're discussing with someone who is better versed in the topic at hand whom you respect. My mistake was going to the Dragon Ball fandom for this. Don't worry, I'm not here to attack and scream about how stupid everyone is. I'm just here to call out ridiculous logic where I've been seeing it and educate the fanbase on how the point of discussion is lost when these faulty arguments, or others like it, are used. Just to give an idea of where I'm coming from, any and all stories that I bring up of things that I have actually seen are not only true stories, but are also things that I've seen praised. I have recently put in time to study different logical fallacies because I was frustrated at my inability to name them when I saw them. I won't be going down a list of every logical fallacy in all of existence, but I will be naming quite a few. The first awful argument that I've seen being thrown around is possibly the most important one to point out for what this video is trying to do. The fallacy fallacy. What this means is that being able to point out a fallacious argument does not automatically mean the conclusion is wrong. All it means is that there is no obligation to respond to said argument. If we are discussing whether or not Goku's character in Super is different than it was in the original 42 volumes of the Dragon Ball manga, and I were to state, multiple people have come out complaining about this, therefore I'm right and you can't argue against it, stating that I use the argumentum ad populum, or appeal to majority fallacy, does not prove that Goku's character in DBS is no different than he was in the original 42 volumes. Let's talk about how there is no reason to feel obligated to respond to an argument. Not responding does not prove you wrong. Let me repeat, not responding does not prove you wrong. Responding does not prove you right. Having the last word is not some magic tool in discussion that makes you right. Fighting for the last word in a debate proves your childishness, and acting as though you won when the clearly more mature other person backed off is even more proof that you are a child. On the opposite side of this, trying to play victim by stating I never wanted an argument when the opposing side proves to have logical sense to back them up also isn't any good, especially when your original comment that they are arguing against had argumentative language. This next example will lead into my next point. I posted a picture from the manga onto my Tumblr to make a dumb comment since I am currently live blogging watching the series with the manga in hand. In response to this, a follower of mine reblogged the post and stated, if I recall right, that's not what he truly said. And then later, after going back and forth for a while when I pointed out how ridiculous that notion was, which I will go into in a second, he stated that he wasn't trying to state that the version of the manga I had in my hand was wrong, but rather that he was just stating that he remembered a different translation and found that interesting. Here's the thing, if you are going to use language like, that's not what he truly said, then you are challenging my post's legitimacy by claiming there is a true version and that my version is not that true version. You are trying to start a debate. Now, I understand that not everyone realizes how important language is, but I will tell you right now that, well, language is important. This is the internet where no body language nor tone of voice is available, so while a friend that you are talking to in real life could gather that you did not mean to question the source that was handed to you, on the internet there is no way for a stranger to put that together. It is not my job to assume you meant something that you didn't write. You need to write what you mean, and if someone misunderstands you, recognize that it is not that they are stupid or crazy or just looking for a fight, but rather that your language led them to a different conclusion than you intended. On to that next point that I mentioned I would get into. How ridiculous is it that my posting a clip from the physical manga that is in my hand is questioned? Given the hot topic right now of Goku's character, I find it interesting that the clip I posted was Goku telling Vegeta, you didn't sell your love for them, which, while I was just making a comment about how emotional I was getting about these scenes over Vegeta's character, could be used to disprove this weird notion I've seen going around right now that Goku is totally incapable of feeling or even understanding the concept of love. After all, he could see that Vegeta loved his family. So there's an interpretation that Goku can't understand love going around that this manga clip could be used as evidence against. You could either come up with an argument that includes that clip, or you could delegitimize said clip. Obviously, the best route is to convince everyone that that clip isn't real by stating that the translation is wrong! Seriously? Who am I to trust if I can't even trust the original 42 volumes of the manga that was translated by professionals who more than likely hold no bias towards characterization? Look, I get it. This fanbase is really crazy toxic towards certain beliefs of the characters, and I know that the anime-loving English-speaking community in general has a distrust of corporate translations, but at the end of the day, I don't speak or read Japanese, and my assumption is that most people who talk with me can't either. You have to trust someone, and there's no reason to trust Herms over Viz or vice versa. It's all based on, well, they clearly have the credentials that need to be respected, and they told me this is what was said. If I hear ever again that Vizisms exist when we're talking about something other than names or censorship, which, no, I don't trust Viz on names because Chestnut, it's Zoro, not Zolo. I can't be held responsible for what I'm going to do with you. Trying to discuss Goku's character in this fandom when you think he's a good guy with good intentions puts you in a position of others moving the goalpost far too often. That's the fallacy we're dealing with here. People moving the requirements of what it takes for them to consider your argument without actually giving a counter-argument whenever a previous requirement is met. Here's how it goes in this fandom and how I've actually seen it happen. I don't think Goku is as selfish as everyone says he is. Well, you probably just watched the dub. Watch the subtitle version and you'll see he's a completely different character. Oh, well, I've watched the sub and I still think this because of this scene that happened. Well, that's just the anime. Toriyama himself explicitly said that the anime literally made him Superman. If you read the manga, you would know how different he is. Yeah, no, that scene's in the manga and it reads the same, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. Look, here it is. Oh, wow, I didn't expect you to not know this, but Goku is based on Sun Wukong, the Monkey King from Journey to the West, and he's a jerk, no doubt about it. So that means that Goku is totally selfish. This happens, people. This is moving the goalpost, and it has no place in intelligent conversation. Why on earth would you bring up the fact that Sun Wukong was a jerk who demanded heaven reward him for his deeds to the point of being shoved under a mountain?
So, you're Sun Wukong, right? Damn it!
We are talking about Goku's character, not Sun Wukong. I know that there's multiple versions of the series that one could use as their standard in their analysis, but you need to pick one and stick to it. For example, my standard is the original 42 volumes of the manga, plain and simple. If someone questions whether something I'm referencing happened, I check the manga. It's not hard to do, so I do it and respond to them accordingly. Also, real quick, assuming someone is a dubby, quote-unquote, when they disagree with you is actually getting people who were born and raised in Japan, as well as people who have only ever read the manga, really ticked off.
Don't tell me I only ever watched the dub when we own all of this manga. I love this manga, okay?
Stop assuming that if someone has a different interpretation from you, that they just read or watched the wrong version. Always assume that they know just as much as you do and give them arguments when they disagree. Don't use the ad hominem fallacy and attack their intelligence. It doesn't make you look smarter nor prove your point. It just makes you look like an elitist jerk. Since we're on that topic, yes, I say Krillin, I say Kienzan, I say Special Beam Cannon, I say Saiyan, and I say Kamehameha and Kamehameha interchangeably, so fight me. I was raised on the Jabberwocky. Words, and especially names, don't matter. I just use whatever rolls off the tongue easier in the sentence I'm speaking, and hyperbolic time chamber, while it means absolutely nothing, is a lot easier for me to say and sounds a lot cooler than the room of spirit and time. What words and pronunciations I am using do not change the meaning behind my arguments. Again, you don't look smarter and it doesn't mean you won the debate when you call me out on stuff like that. It just makes you look like an elitist jerk who's using anything you can get your hands on to be right. Banter between friends, like how Geekdom 101 teases me for Suno instead of Snow, is fine. Letting someone know that the Room of Spirit and Time is the real name of the hyperbolic time chamber is fine. Using Japanese names is fine. If someone questions you because they don't know that Pui Pui is Pui Pui and not Pocus because they just read the Viz manga, informing them is fine. I brought up the Jabberwocky, so let's talk about the Jabberwocky. You know the Jabberwocky is a mystical creature in the woods. You know the Vorpal blade is probably some awesome sword. You know the sword made noise as it went snicker snack. I.e., if you know what the setting is in your discussion, the name doesn't mean anything. Chi-Chi can be Chi-Chi or Milk. Vegeta can be Vegeta. Pui Pui can be Pocus. You know attack names and technique names can be whatever the pecan. Unless that is the subject of discussion where it's brought up and it does matter, then it frankly doesn't win your argument. Note that this is not the same as when I said language does matter. Character and technique names do not change the meaning of your statement. Saying Krillin or Kuririn doesn't change what character we're talking about, but using retroactively as if it's a literature term when it's not does change the meaning of your sentence. Another time when your language does matter is when using the word explicitly. I talk about Death of the Author a lot, and it could form its own video, so I will just silently leave a link to my essay about that. Let's talk instead about how there is a right and wrong way to use the author's word as evidence should you choose to not follow the respected philosophy of Death of the Author. Using your interpretation of what the creator said in order to stop discussion is not how you use interviews. Yes, I said interpretation of what the creator said, because there is no getting around it. You are interpreting what you are reading. Again, assuming that nobody watching or listening reads or speaks Japanese, you are interpreting a translation of what the creator said. I have had the pleasure of reading a Japanese fan's response to the translated interview of Toriyama stating that Goku sees his family as companions, whereas Vegeta sees his as extensions of himself. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to tell you that the translation is inaccurate or that anyone else has said that. It's a good translation, and the people at Kanzenshuu have credentials that must be respected. I'm just making the point that when it was brought to said Japanese fans' attention that people are saying this interview means that Goku doesn't love Chi-Chi or his children at all, that they were confused. They said themselves that yes, the translation is fine, but how people are taking it is not how it was read by them and their friends at all. They then went on to describe that Goku just has a different sense of family than Vegeta does, where Vegeta's sense of family is much like a Japanese idea of the concept where a family member's success is their success. They then went on to describe Goku's sense of family based on the series and the interview, and funnily enough, it's a lot like an American sense of family. That's all the interview was saying, was that Goku and Vegeta have a different sense of family from each other. It just so happens that Vegeta's is Japanese, where Goku's is American. Remember back when I said that there's a strange argument going around that Toriyama explicitly stated that Goku can't possibly understand the concept of love, let alone feel that way about his wife and children? First, they did not source an interview clip and got upset when others rightly demanded a link because they had never seen such a statement. Then, when they finally did source an interview, this is the one they linked to. Can we look at the definition of the word explicitly, please? Did you look at that? I don't believe Toriyama explicitly stated pinto beans anything. If you are going to use the author's word, stating that the anime completely changed the character and that anyone who doesn't think he's a totally one-track minded jerk is stupid and wrong due to a statement by Toriyama that sometimes the anime would show him as more righteous than he intended, is not how you use it. If you want to use the interviews, you better be prepared to have your interpretation of the interviews challenged, because even those aren't indisputable facts that no one could possibly get a different idea of. If you are here to force your ideas on others and to shut down discussion with quote-unquote undeniable proof, then you should go write in a diary, because posting on a public forum is not for you. Moving on to something else I've encountered. Resonance is a real thing that Dragon Ball's writing gets so right. In layman's terms, what that means is that the characters in story are written in such a way that is recognizable and sparks a connection to the audience. Resonance is that feeling when you look at something a character does and go, oh, that's so me, or oh, that's so my mom, or even, oh, this isn't the same, but this reminds me of another story that I really like. Finding where your personal resonance is with characters can be fun analysis and can help you to understand the characters on a different level. What finding that personal resonance doesn't do is render anybody who does not have the same resonance as you automatically wrong. I've seen this countless times. The most hilarious of these times, thinking back, is when I was in a Skype call with someone trying to explain to them why I did not see Goku as a deadbeat father, nor did I see Piccolo as a replacement father figure. Said person had a personal resonance with the concept of having a deadbeat father and someone to replace them that he was projecting onto the characters. He yelled at me over and over again that it was a fact that Gohan saw Piccolo as a father and that I would never understand it because I haven't experienced having a father walk out on me and then another male figure entering my life to become my father figure. He also went on to state that he couldn't expect someone who comes from the land where people marry their cousins and drink melted butter to understand much of anything. Yeah, that conversation was a wild one that I will not soon forget, simply for how ridiculous it was and how bad that person was at debates. A less extreme example, but still pretty extreme, would be the fact that someone stated that they hated their mother, and their friends hated their mother, and they all nicknamed said mother Chi-Chi. Therefore, their hatred of Chi-Chi was justified, and they were right in all the claims they made about her, regardless of their inability to use the manga to prove it, and everyone who disagreed was just ignorant of the real world. Leaving that run-on sentence to speak for itself, I have one more example, one that's much more reasonable, though still a faulty look at the characters. Someone I know resonates with Goku and Chi-Chi because their father is a martial artist, among other things. They came across some family problems that I don't know all the details to, but since they have projected their parents onto Goku and Chi-Chi, they have decided that stating, my father was like this, therefore Goku is the same, or people who are like this are all selfish and always make wholly selfish decisions, therefore Goku is totally selfish and always makes selfish decisions about everything everything in any and all situations is as good as using the manga. It's not. The other problem with this example and with the others is that these people have decided that their family members are literally these characters, and they take any defense of the characters they use their projection to hate as a defense of the actions of the family member they hate, as well as take any attack on the character they've connected to a family member they love as a personal attack against said family member. Do whatever you need to in order to cope with rough times or tough memories, but if you are that connected to characters and if you cannot separate them from your projected resonance, then you are not able to properly analyze nor discuss the analysis of these characters. Don't misunderstand me though. I'm not saying that all because you relate to Gohan because he's a quiet, well-mannered, socially awkward, and protective older brother that you are never allowed to sit at the adult table to discuss his character and how it's written. I'm saying that if you have a resonance like that, you need to figure out how deep it goes and spend some time separating your resonance from what actually happened in the story. And if someone suggests that you are projecting a part of yourself onto the character, that is not an insult to your intelligence. It is a compliment to Toriyama's writing. It is also not incorrect to use a real-world example when the real world is brought up, such as when people state Goku and Chi-Chi's relationship would never work in real life because Goku is off doing his own thing too often and that would leave any woman lonely, bitter, and upset. My response is always, my parents do their own thing, they will talk and will have some time together, but for the most part they are in separate rooms from each other, not because they hate talking to each other, but just because they're both the type to enjoy time alone. So no, not all women feel lonely, bitter, and upset when their husband is not around all the time. For right now, those are the only examples that are coming to mind. I hope I got my point across, and if any of my videos are spread around in this fanbase, I hope it's this one, because if we can knock down just the terrible arguments that I've listed here, then maybe I can find some people to have intelligent conversation with. Right now, all I'm seeing is a bunch of faulty arguments being praised as fact, and anybody who disagrees with the current fandom majority being patronized and treated like an idiot simply for disagreeing without anyone being willing to hear their arguments out. So please, don't feel like you're obligated to respond to someone disagreeing with you lest you be seen as letting them win. Don't be afraid of changing your mind or stating that someone makes sense if you don't have any arguments for the time. Be mindful of the language you use. Don't move the goalposts demanding more from the opposing side without providing counters to their current argument. Pick a version of the story that you trust and view as the ultimate canon and analyze/argue within that version consistently. Stop assuming someone who disagrees with you is a dubby. Don't use what names or pronunciations someone uses as a means to delegitimize their arguments. Recognize and respect those who follow the philosophy of death of the author because it has more of a backing from professional literary analysts than any other form of analysis at the moment. If you choose to use the author's word as evidence, be sure to do so correctly. Take the time to separate your resonance and projection of characters from their actual characterization before demanding others see them the way that you do. And most importantly, remember what I said at the beginning of this video. If someone is using faulty arguments, that does not prove their conclusion wrong. It just means that they have used faulty arguments. I'm Kariaju. I don't speak or read Japanese. Thanks for watching.